Welcome to the Language in Motion podcast, where we share inspiration, tips, and tricks from stories of success and failure on the language learning journey. As a language learner, you may have asked yourself, what is a relative pronoun? Or maybe you haven't. Either way, we hope you'll listen to this episode because relative pronouns are very important. We use relative pronouns to refer to nouns mentioned previously, often connecting to sentences. An example is, the teacher who taught me about relative pronouns was American. In this example, who relates to the teacher, which who taught me about relative pronouns modifies. So you can see we need the relative pronoun who to connect the sentence. The most common relative pronouns in English are who, that, whose, whoever, whomever, who, and whom. In some situations, the words what, when, and where can also function as relative pronouns. It is important to note that relative pronouns stay the same. They do not change from singular to plural or masculine to feminine. The pronouns who and whom are generally used for people, whose for possession, which for things, and that can be used for things and people in defining relative clauses. Now, you may be asking, what's a relative clause? Defining relative clauses are clauses that are essential to a sentence. Non-defining relative clauses are not essential. They just add information. Relative clauses are typically introduced by relative pronouns. In defining relative clauses, where the relative pronoun refers to the subject, it is best to use that. For example, the person that I met was very nice. Or, the dinner that you cooked was delicious. In defining relative clauses, where the relative pronoun refers to the object, we have more flexibility. We can use who, that, or whom, although whom is more formal. For example, the boy whom I called is in my class. Or, the boy who I called is in my class. Or, the boy that I called is in my class. So as you can see, we have a few options. In defining relative clauses where the relative pronoun is possessive, it is best to use whose. For example, the person whose number was called should go to the counter. Or, teachers whose students study very hard are lucky. In non-defining relative clauses, where the relative pronoun refers to the subject, it is best to use who or which. For example, our neighbor, who lives down the street, is very nice. Or, the dress, which was red, was very comfortable. In non-defining relative clauses, where the relative pronoun refers to the object, we can use which, who, or whom, but again, whom is more formal. For example, the boy whom I like is in my class. Or, the boy who I like is in my class. Or, the dress which I like was red. In non-defining relative clauses where the relative pronoun is possessive, we can use whose or of which, although of which is more formal. For example, this band, whose music you just heard, is coming here on tour. Or, this car, the driver of which just walked by, is parked illegally. Now, you may have noticed while I was reading the non-defining relative clause examples, I paused. This is because in these sentences, we wrap the clause with commas. And as we can also see from these examples, the defining relative clauses have integral and required parts of the sentence, while the non-defining relative clauses do not. They're just adding more information. Okay, now let's listen to some examples of relative pronouns and relative clauses. The scientist who won the award was very intelligent. The food that I bought last week has gone bad. The representative, whoever the voters elect, will start next month. Purple, which is my favorite color, also happens to be our new logo color. Where did you put the gift that I gave you? The house, when it is finished, will have 2 rooms. That gym down the block, where we usually work out, is closed. And now, let's test your knowledge. Try to complete these sentences with the correct relative pronoun. The show we were watching is over. The show we were watching is over. Have your answer? Check if it's correct. The show that we were watching is over. All right, let's try another one. The contestant 1 is over there. The contestant 1 is over there. Did you guess? Let's see if you got it right. The contestant who won is over there. And now one more challenge. The book was my first surprised everyone. The book was my first surprised everyone. Have your answer? Let's hear it. The book, which was my first, surprised everyone. We hope today's lesson on relative pronouns will be helpful for you as you continue on your language learning journey. That's it for today's episode. Subscribe to our podcast for updates on our next episodes, and please send us your requests for future topics at hello@limlessons.com.